Trump transition team compiling list of current and former U.S. military officers for possible courts-martial. The Trump transition team is compiling a list of senior current and former U.S. military officers who were directly involved in the withdrawal from Afghanistan and exploring whether they could be court-martialed for their involvement, according to a U.S. official and a person familiar with the plan. Officials working on the transition are considering creating a commission to investigate the 2021 withdrawal from Afghanistan, including gathering information about who was directly involved in the decision-making for the military, how it was carried out, and whether the military leaders could be eligible for charges as serious as treason, the U.S. official and person with knowledge of the plan said. They're taking it very seriously, the person with knowledge of the plan said. The Trump transition team did not immediately respond to a request for comment. Matt Flynn, a former Deputy Assistant Secretary of Defense for Counter-Narcotics and Global Threats, is helping lead the effort, the sources said. It is being framed as a review of how the U.S. first got into the war in Afghanistan and how the U.S. ultimately withdrew. President-elect Donald Trump has condemned the withdrawal as a humiliation and the most embarrassing day in the history of our country. It is not clear, though, what would legally justify treason charges since the military officers were following the orders of President Joe Biden to withdraw all U.S. forces from Afghanistan. A 2022 independent review by the Special Inspector General for Afghanistan Reconstruction blamed both the Trump and Biden administrations for the chaotic U.S. withdrawal in 2021. Trump first reached an agreement with the Taliban in 2020 to withdraw all U.S. forces from Afghanistan, roughly 13,000 troops, and release 5,000 Taliban fighters from prison. The Biden administration then completed the withdrawal and badly overestimated the ability of Afghan government forces to fight the Taliban on their own. Trump's choice for Secretary of Defense, Fox News personality Pete Hegseth, has criticized the withdrawal, saying the U.S. lost the war and wasted billions of dollars. In his book, The War on Warriors, Hegseth wrote, "The next president of the United States needs to radically overhaul Pentagon senior leadership to make us ready to defend our nation and defeat our enemies. Lots of people need to be fired. The debacle in Afghanistan, of course, is the most glaring example." Hegseth calls the withdrawal a humiliating retreat and says leaders at the Pentagon were not held accountable for the deadly attack at Abbey Gate, which killed 13 U.S. service members and roughly 170 Afghan civilians. Nor were they held accountable for a subsequent U.S. airstrike in Kabul that officials thought would kill the Islamic State group leader behind the suicide attack, but instead killed 10 innocent Afghans, including 7 children, he wrote. These generals lied. They mismanaged. They violated their oath. They failed. They disgraced our troops and our nation. They got people killed unnecessarily, he wrote. And to this moment, they keep their jobs. Worse, they continue to actively erode our military and its values by capitulating to civilians with radical agendas. They are an embarrassment, with stars still on their shoulders. The transition team is looking at the possibility of recalling several commanders to active duty for possible charges, the U.S. official said. It's not clear the Trump administration would pursue treason charges and instead could focus on lesser charges that highlight the officer's involvement. They want to set an example, said the person with knowledge of the plan. Speaking to NBC News days before the election, Howard Lutnick, one of the 2 advisors leading the transition, said Trump learned after his first administration that he had hired Democratic generals, and he would not make that mistake again. Former officials who worked in Trump's first administration have said they advised Trump against policies they thought would weaken U.S. national security, such as withdrawing U.S. troops from Syria, and they advised against actions that they thought might violate the Constitution or inflame tensions domestically, such as deploying active-duty U.S. troops to quell protests after the 2020 police killing of George Floyd.